I always describe the house to people as it has great bones. It has really, really good bones. It just needs a lot of love. So welcome into the house. This is the front hall. One of my favorite things actually in the house is this enormous mirror, which was actually here when we bought it. It's just a really, really clever way to make a very, very narrow hall feel bright and spacious. And some people actually think that's like another half of the house. I wish, but no. It's just a great way to bounce the light around. So I highly recommend putting a massive mirror into a very small, dark hallway. So come on in. This is our living room, and it's kind of the formal front room in our Victorian terrace. So this is all vintage and antique furniture. I needed a little bit of privacy in this bay window, and so I just bunged up these cafe curtains. It's a very, very simple DIY kind of job. So these panels are from Argos/Habitat. I think it's one now. They were £12 each, and all I did was I cut the bottom off to kind of the length I wanted, and I used some hemming tape to hem up the bottom, and then they're just strung up on really inexpensive curtain wire from Amazon. So all together, this whole bay window, I think the cafe curtains were less than 40 quid. So it's really, really easy, just a little bit of hemming tape with an iron and some scissors and some cheap panels. So you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Well, I fell in love with the house first. My husband was not convinced because it still had incredible original features. It had original cornicing, it had the original ceiling roses, really high skirting boards, and also another thing I loved was that the woodwork had been stripped, so you could kind of see the bones really, really well. Yeah, when we bought the house, these two rooms were completely separate. This middle room was a bedroom, and this was kind of a communal area. So we wanted to have a room, especially for the TV in the middle room, we wanted the room to be able to be closed off. So for like watching a film, you want to be able to make it quite dark, and in case the kids are being loud. So we just wanted to be able to have the option to close it off, and actually we probably shut the doors at least once a day. So this middle room can be blocked off and can be opened up again. We didn't knock it all together because I just wanted to kind of respect, again, the bones of the house and put something a bit more traditional. Gutting a place like this was never on the cards for us, and I would never recommend that a client gut a Victorian house where the bones are still good and intact. I think that things like the cornicing, the picture rail, the roses, I think if they're in kind of a workable functioning order, I think they should always be kept. Of course, you can replace them. You could kind of rip everything out and put up new, but I would always try to avoid that. I think it's wasteful, and I think that there's something about the stories that these things tell us. Even if they're imperfect, even if they've been painted over, there's just so much life behind it. And I think that sort of charm, imperfection is what makes these houses really special and makes them sing, and something that you can't feel when everything is brand new and everything is kind of quote unquote perfect in a house. So I always veer towards saving what you have, making the bones good again, if possible, without ripping them out. I don't know how to describe my decorating style. I would say it's, some people have told me I should say, it's kind of eclectic and elegant at the same time. I think I just am drawn to things that I love, and I think that I don't know what style that is, but it doesn't adhere to a time or a place, but I do really listen to the house. Like I wouldn't decorate this Victorian house in the same way I would decorate, you know, a 1930s house or a more modern house. And I think, I don't know, being self-taught, I just kind of am drawn to what I'm drawn to and try to convince other people to believe me when I tell them to go with something. So one thing that I think is really important and that I kind of use in my own home and I advise people to do is think about the sightlines. So especially kind of when you walk throughout a house and when you're walking through from room to room, when you're walking down hallways, what do you see? And oftentimes in these kind of Victorian terraces, one of the most important sightlines is the view into the room from the hall. So in our house, it captures your eye all the time and you see it all the time. So I think rather than kind of forget about it, I would say that people should kind of really think about these important vignettes that occur throughout the house as they move through. So it's often alcoves, and it's often kind of views from one room into the other, or views from the dining table back into the kitchen, or the view from the hallway into a bedroom. But oftentimes it can be framed with something as simple as just a pretty piece of art that you like. You could hang that on the wall, but just to like frame the space with little knickknacks, little tchotchkes, maybe a vase, maybe a piece of art, a beautiful piece of furniture, just things that go together and make you feel happy. That is what I mean when I say a vignette. They just have to kind of play off of each other. If you're lost for how to decorate an alcove, or you just kind of feel a little bit lost, you can always use books. So I love this kind of sightline. I love this alcove. All it is books. It's just really, really simple, but it brings me a lot of joy as I walk through the house to get a glimpse of this floor to ceiling kind of bookshelf situation. Now we're in the kitchen. This is definitely one of my favorite spaces in the house. We created this space with two small extensions. So this little back dining area is a little extension, and this side area is another little extension. And they made what was before a really small, really dark and cold kitchen into this kind of like indoor-outdoor, really special greenery-filled space. Yeah, this space was incredibly dark because it's north facing, and what we did is we opened it up to the west. So the glass roof is west facing, and this kind of elevation over here is west facing. As you can see, the afternoon light is just starting to peek in. So while we don't get any light directly from the back, it means that we do get this incredible play of light in the afternoon, and it's really, really special. It also means that this room is never too hot because we don't have this like direct south sun. And one of the North Stars when we were designing the space was having a glass roof. That was really the thing that kind of guided everything else. I knew that I wanted it because we lived in a rental where there was a glass roof, and the feeling of being kind of inside and outside and bringing so much light into a hard-working space like a kitchen, it was just key for me. So then we kind of got as much glazing as we could, and we added all of these windows in the back, which was definitely kind of the most expensive thing we did, but definitely the most important. So I would say spend your money if you're doing a renovation on the bones. Just spend it on the important things. Other things can come later. You can live without, you know, a proper dining table for a while, but putting in excellent windows and doors is really, really key. So another thing that I think is really important spatially about the kitchen is, so it feels like a big space because the ceilings are high, but actually it's not that big, and we don't have a ton of cupboards. We've eked out a bit of storage here. This is our pantry, and it just means that we can have all of the small appliances tucked away. We can have all of the breakfast bits here, all of the water bottles, all of the stuff you don't really know what to do with, like all of this stuff down there is just tucked away behind a curtain. We can shut the doors if we need to and just tuck it all away. Another thing that is kind of a clever use of space in here is this, which is a very shallow, I think it's about 20, maybe 20 centimeters deep food cupboard. It's where we keep all of our dry food, and it is directly behind the toilet, which is on the other side. So it would have been kind of lost space. And then recently we've done the garden. It's a really simple, not very exciting garden, but we use it like an extension of the house. So it's mostly paved. It has kind of beds with roses and climbers. It's really, really nice to have this like indoor-outdoor feeling and to have a garden that you can use like another room. Another little way that we kind of eked out space in this room was this paneled part is the old kitchen. So we put the paneling on, but it kind of shows you where the old kitchen was. And then this part over here is the extension. And because of modern kind of building regs, the extension had to be a little bit thicker than, or the wall had to be a bit thicker than the old kitchen. So we had this very shallow kind of space, and I didn't want there just to be a nib. So what we did is I found these doors on eBay, and I had my builders just build kind of a frame around them. And that's where we store our kind of not everyday glasses, candles live on top, linens and like tea towels, and the internet lives at the bottom with some wine. So it's just another way of eking out storage, even if it's super shallow, a little bit makeshift. It just works really well, and you can never have enough storage. This is a settle, I've been told. We got it from Stowaway Antiques on Instagram. I saw it on Instagram, and I bought it without measuring. I fell in love with it, and we kind of rejigged our plans for this dining area. We were thinking of potentially putting in kind of a built-in bench or a corner something or other. We can fit so many people onto it. I mean, this is not a big dining table. It's 70 centimeters wide by I think 210 long, and we can fit 14 people at that table. So it's just thanks to that settle, we just cram them in. So a lot of the lighting throughout the house is vintage. The pendant is vintage. The 3 pendants over the kitchen run are vintage. These 2 lamps over here are vintage. And I think that vintage lighting just, again, it adds so much charm and character to a space, especially in a new build. Like this is a new build, that is a new build, and having vintage lighting and vintage furniture adds charm, and it adds functionality, of course. It adds that little je ne sais quoi that is really, really hard to get if everything in a space is new. So I really think that lighting is one of the most important aspects of a house. Maybe layout, maybe furnishing, maybe, but lighting is honestly so important. And sometimes, there is not budget to rewire. That's okay. If there is, I would recommend it. I mean, having a cohesive lighting plan and really thinking about how you want to use the space and how the space wants to be used will help you inform the lighting. This hallway used to be much bigger, but we kind of decided to make a narrower hallway in favor of having quite a big coat closet, a loo, a pantry, and food storage. So you kind of like embrace the dark, embrace the fact that it's a long, dark hallway, but you get so much functionality out of it. Yeah, it's very, very full. It holds all of the sins, and we can just shut the door. This is the landing, so it's half a floor up from the living area and half a floor down from our bedroom. This used to just kind of be a big hallway, and we carved a utility space out of it. We have the machines stacked, and we have a big old eBay sink that I accidentally bought on eBay. It happens to all of us. It happened to fit perfectly, and we just put simple, really inexpensive vinyl floor down from Tappy, and the yellow on the trim is Sudbury Yellow by Fair & Ball. And the rise and fall pendant was actually a gift from some Danish friends. So it's a fun, very, very functional little utility. This is Eric's office. I don't come in here that much. It is, yeah, it's all right. It works hard. So there's a Peloton in here and his desk, and then some kind of old furniture we've had forever. The cool thing about this room is the ceiling. So when we bought this house, this was the family bathroom, and it was honestly very, very disgusting. So we removed the ceiling, and we decided to incorporate what was a storage space into the room. And then we painted it, we kind of drenched it almost in Tea and Toast by Atelier Ellis, just to kind of tie in the brown of the beams and the brick, which is kind of exposed up there. So we kind of chose a mid organic-y brown, which I probably wouldn't have chosen for another space. It just really, really, really worked here. This rise and fall wall light, my dad actually had this, it's very dusty, in their garage in Boston and Massachusetts, and I carried it home from one of my many trips back, and it just works really well in this corner. And I put it here specifically because when you kind of are looking into the room, when my husband's like ring light and all of his other kind of officey bits aren't here, what you see when you look in is this beautiful silhouette of the light. So another line of sight that I really like. This is where I keep a lot of my worky bits. I don't have my own home office because I actually really like working at the dining room table. It's so bright, it's so light. I'm really close to the kettle and the snacks. But this is where I kind of put stuff up that I'm thinking about. I move it around all the time. It's such a mess, as you can see. But it is just a place I sometimes just come and stand in front of, and I get inspiration and I'm reminded of things I love. Okay, so now we are on the first floor, and this floor consists of our bedroom and kind of our bathroom / family bathroom. One of the things I loved about this house was the original cornicing, and this room has such beautiful cornicing and a beautiful, hopefully original rose. So I didn't want to interfere with kind of the original bones, but I did know that we needed to kind of eke out a wardrobe closet space. So we also wanted to connect this room to the adjacent room and create a bathroom. In so doing, we had to make a doorway in between the rooms, which meant that if we didn't kind of separate the space somehow, the bed would have had to go here and the alcoves would have had to be given over to wardrobes. And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to kind of have something beautiful to look at from the bed. So we decided to build this like partition walk-through wardrobe. It involved quite a lot of measuring to make sure everything would work. And we're lucky enough to have a window here, which kind of lights this space and gives it its own dignity, so it feels like a distinct space. And it works really, really, really well. So we have like a his and hers, mostly hers on this side, and you're able to kind of walk all the way around it and kind of circle the room this way. And again, lots of like beautiful, for me at least, lines of sight. So that's a beautiful line of sight. Looking into the room is a beautiful line of sight. And I just really thought about those things when I was deciding how to decorate and add details to this space. And then in this alcove near the window is my vanity, and it's kind of one of my favorite little spots. Cato, the cat, sleeps on the stool pretty much every day. On the chimney breast, we actually found that fireplace surround and insert on the street, and we actually like kept it in our rental property for a couple years. But I just had a vision, I guess, and it really, really works here. We have a very pale pink on the walls, and it kind of just works with the red marble. And we sacrificed a bedroom to make a very big, very generous family bathroom. And it's honestly my favorite room in the whole house. It's kind of dark actually and cozy, but it just feels so good inside. We kind of belabored over the layout, and again, it was kind of the thing where you really had to measure to make sure everything would fit. Not a massive fan of tile, so rather than tile this walk-in shower, we used micro cement, which is a material that I really, really, really like. I tried to work out the budget here, and actually tiling this whole thing would have been very similar cost to micro cementing it. So yes, it's an expensive thing to do, but it worked out. It works out when you're kind of dealing with large areas. The micro cement has been incredible. We've had it for 3 years now, I think, and I just have absolutely no complaints. We did some tile from Mandarin stone in the tray, and then some beautiful marble from Develli, which was fabricated by PGQ kind of throughout the bathroom. So we've got a little bit in there, and we've got big, really, I think, impressive backsplashes behind each sink, and that was kind of the splashy bit of this bathroom. Otherwise, the bathroom was done quite on the cheap. We've got vintage lights throughout, so every single light in here except for the light in the shower is vintage. A very inexpensive fire surround from Tool Station, an eBay bathtub, and sinks from Arcade or from Burlington actually, that are, I think, discontinued, but everything in here was done on a budget except for the micro cement and the marble, and I think it really, those things kind of bring it up and make it feel really special. Okay, let's go up. There's piles of stuff on stairs, like always, every house. So much stuff. Nothing is perfect. We have 3 kids, and I work from home most of the time. My husband works from home. It's a hectic household. There's lots going on. There's usually socks everywhere. There's paint chipping. There are rooms that are half finished. That's all right. I mean, getting from 85% of the way to 100% of the way takes way too much effort. So I think, the house is evolving, it's changing. We'll need to touch some things up as we go. But I think, don't trust Instagram. Nothing is as it seems. All houses are messy, all houses are imperfect, and that's what makes them kind of able to be lived in the way that we all want to live in them. So now we're on the second floor. You can see there's some snags, some things I need to repaint, and let's go into the girls' bathroom. This room was one of the reasons that we bought this house. This was a kitchen because the house was divided between a family that lived here and I think 4 boarders, and this was the boarders' kitchen. And we were able to buy this house and renovate it only really because of this kitchen. We were able to kind of move upstairs, live up here, and there was already a kitchen for us. It was amazing. It was really, really ugly, but it worked so well, and it allowed us to live in and renovate. Once we finished the big downstairs renovation, we turned this into a bathroom for our 3 daughters. So we kind of leaned into the girly aspect, for better or worse. So it's pink. We have a lovely shower curtain from Colors of Arley, a beautiful cafe curtain from Marl Studio, and everything else was done quite on the cheap. In fact, I did it on the cheap too much, to the point that I used really inexpensive, really terrible quality taps that I then had to replace. So these are new taps from the Cast Iron Bath Company, which I really recommend. The grout. So I don't love tiles, as I mentioned. I don't know, they just kind of scare me. And grout, I just don't love grout. But I needed something inexpensive for this bathroom, so we did the cheapest tiles possible. I think they were like 10 pounds a meter. And we dyed the white grout hot pink. I think it technically has sparkles in it, but those are long gone at this point. But the pink grout is great. You can't see anything. It just looks clean all the time, and it's fun and ties into the wall color. Right, okay, so these two rooms are in their natural state, more or less. Actually, they were a little bit messier this morning. This is my middle daughter's room. That's my youngest daughter's room. We haven't really done much to them. So I reinstated this kind of decorative fire surround and insert when we first moved in, and I painted and I whitewashed the woodwork and I painted the walls. But otherwise, it is kind of as it was. Again, not much has happened in here. It's a playful room for an 8-year-old girl. She loves to make her bed with her monkey every morning, so I'm very happy that she does that. But maybe one day I'll put a little more time and effort into these rooms, but for now they seem to be really happy. And this is another kind of line of sight that I really enjoy, this old armoire with the star on top. Yeah, it's just something that I pass by all the time, so it's nice to have a pretty piece of furniture to stare at. Okay, so we're about to go up to the attic. Oh, we just finished this part of the house earlier this year. I wanted to kind of redo the stairs and have something really beautiful put in, but I couldn't really afford it. So we decided to paint instead, and we picked 3 different colors from, actually 4 different colors from Fair and Ball. There's Archive, Preference Red, Entrance Hall Pink, and Pink Ground. I just think it really zhuzhes up these like otherwise quite nasty old stairs that were kind of bright orange. So let's go upstairs. There's a huge fly in here. Hold on, let me get him out. Right, so this bathroom is really, really beautiful. It has the most impressive floor. It's a slab of albacchiata marble that we kind of used on the architrave around the door, the shower tray, the drain, the step, the skirt, everything. It's really, really impressive. This bathroom is so small. So actually, it's been the hardest space that I've ever had to design, and it doesn't really function that well because it is so small, but it's incredibly beautiful. And I knew that kind of walking up the stairs to the top level of the house, you see into this bathroom all the time. And so I wanted it to be really visually kind of appealing and special. We added this massive skylight because, well, for light and for space. Also, the head height was really, really restricted beforehand, so you really couldn't use the space. We had the vanity made by Dan McKinley. The marble was fabricated by PGQ. This is the Stella light from my lighting collection with plank hardware. It is a super versatile light. We've used it throughout this top level. It articulates like this, and it casts a lovely, lovely glow with these little perforations. This is the mixed metal version, and I'm really, really proud of it. I really believe that when you care for a house, it will care for you. And I learned that from my parents. I grew up in a house that was cared for immensely, still cared for immensely, and they did it all themselves. So, you know, there aren't professionals coming in and doing the cleaning or the gardening or the DIY fixing. It's always been my parents. And so that's kind of how I learned to really give over a lot of my time and effort to the house. And then that kind of effort is always rewarded. This is our eldest's room. She is a teenager, and so she gets the best room in the house. There were already skylights here. This was a boarder's bedroom. We kind of made them a bit bigger just to get a bit more head height because the ceiling height is quite restricted. So while it feels like a biggish room, it's actually less than half of the space that you can kind of stand in. Again, we used a lot of vintage furniture. We didn't buy anything actually for this space. We had this kind of furniture already. The only thing I bought was the little stool to go under the vanity. And the big splurge was putting in an entire wall of joinery, because with the sloped ceiling, it was just really, really impossible to fit furniture and to have enough storage. So we use this room actually to store lots of the household stuff, not just her clothing. And then to soften these like massive planes of ceiling, we used some V-groove paneling. It was actually really expensive and very tricky for the builders because none of the walls were kind of square or at 90 degrees. So they spent a lot of time scribing things and trying to make it look aligned, and they did a really good job, but it was not for the faint of heart. We painted everything in Fair and Ball Archive, which is an archive color, and it's this lovely warm taupe that has a pinky undertone, and it feels really warm and inviting, and I think it's perfect for a bedroom. This light here is called the Aster, and it's in unlacquered brass, solid unlacquered brass, and it's one of my absolute favorite lights that we designed with plank hardware. It is a perfect little spotlight in the ceiling. It's an alternative to a recessed light, and it just shines the light so beautifully. Even when the bulb is off, it just bounces the light around, and I think it's really, really special. Okay, so this is our guest room. Since we're both foreigners, we have guests all the time. In fact, my father-in-law is arriving tomorrow morning. I wanted a room that felt incredibly welcoming for guests and was super functional, but I also wanted to play. So this was kind of the last renovation we did, and I wanted to do things that I hadn't done elsewhere and that I might not have another opportunity to do. So I used wallpaper throughout. The ceilings are all kind of wonky, lots of different planes on the ceiling. So I decided to wallpaper everything. And my lovely neighbor, Linda, designed this wallpaper for us. I gave her some kind of prompts, including like our cat and my daughter's initials and some of their favorite things. And she drew it up. We had it printed through Contrato, just an online kind of print your own wallpaper company. And it has been just delightful. It makes me so happy every time I look at it. So this whole room is filled with lights that I designed for Plank Hardware. This is the Domino, which is a lovely, really short projection wall light that has pretty little perforations so the light kind of twinkles out. We have 3 Stellas in the mixed metal, and there's also an Aster. In this particular space, I used a Perspex backplate and cut a piece of the wallpaper more or less to match. I didn't get it 100%, but it's pretty close. So you kind of don't notice the switch, and it's not kind of taking away from the wallpaper. This window was here. The only thing that I did to the window was I whitewashed it, which is just taking, you know, half white water-based primer, half water, and mixing it up, and then you kind of brush it on, rag it off with a dry rag. Some electrics you don't want to see, so that would be kind of sockets and potentially switches as well. So nowadays there are a lot of options for either clear Perspex backplates or paintable sockets and switches, and I really recommend them. I have a lot of them from Plank Hardware, some from Pookie, and it makes a massive difference just kind of making those necessary electrics kind of just disappear. This one is not painted very well because I did it myself very late at night. But in theory, this would be kind of blending right into the wall. This is a lovely switch from Plank Hardware, and it's designed just to kind of disappear, and I really, really rate them. This is the Vesper, named after my middle daughter. I love it so much. It's just the sweetest, very simple, classic, kind of coolly shaped pendant light with the perforations that kind of twinkle everywhere. One thing that I hated about this house when we first bought it was this kind of, I don't know, 1996 plastic balustrade, I don't know, alternative to spindles, and I always planned to get rid of it. But then budget really wouldn't allow me to put kind of a new staircase, new spindles in, so we kept it. And actually, I kind of love it now, which just goes to show that sometimes something that you hate or you think is dated, if you just kind of live with it for a bit, it can really grow on you. I notice things that are going on in the house. I notice when there's a crack, not that that's a bad thing, but I just notice things because I'm ultimately responsible for fixing it. But I think that that sort of paying attention to a house and giving it your attention, it just means that the house will then kind of serve you better, and it will give you care, and it will take care of you as a family. And I think that's what homes are for. Thank you for exploring my home with me, every single room, even the rooms I didn't really want to show. Every home is imperfect, yours is imperfect, that's how they're supposed to be. I hope that you got a little bit of inspiration, maybe some new ideas on how to care for your house so it cares for you.